Now, staying with the subject of costumes for just a moment, one of our listeners, and also a very dear friend, sent me a blurb that came in from an organization called DatingPositives. DatingPositives. I don't know if you've heard of them. They are a dating site, and it's a resource as well for people with STIs. That's a rather interesting combination, and obviously I love the name going with the thought of what the organization does, DatingPositives. In any event, they and this is what was sent to me. They did a survey of 1,000 adults. I gather this was done around the country. I don't have all the data here. I have some of it. I have a couple of charts which are really fascinating. And the question posed to the respondents was, what is the costume that is being worn by the person who you'd most likely want to go home with at the end of the night, at the party that you're going to? You're at a party, okay? And you basically are having a great time. You're looking forward to meeting people and meeting people, indeed. And there's a chance, as a single person, you're there and you're going to get picked up or pick somebody up, however this works out. What costume are they wearing? What would attract you the most? And the question was presented by DatingPositives to obviously men and women separately. This is just so fascinating and ties in so perfectly what is happening in the last week of the campaigning before the midterm elections on November 6th. Of 7 male categories. Okay, the 7 categories, or the seven major possibilities, I gather, that were offered to female respondents about, okay, what would a male be wearing, or anyone who would go with a male, anyone who would want to ultimately be picked up or go home with a male, however that worked out. And again, I'm not sure of the more refined notions here about, who was being asked. But if your object was to go home or be with a male, what costume would most attract you on that male? The lowest rated costume was for Donald Trump. Only 11.7% of the respondents said that they would be attracted to a male wearing a Donald Trump costume. Or maybe this was about male costumes generally. I'm not sure how it was worded. But in any event, well, when you look at just for comparative purposes, the other costumes that were all considered far more inducive to getting to know you and getting together with you included pirates, the devil, John Bon Jovi, police officers, Prince was in there. And the big winner among male costumes, Superman. Can you imagine? Now, in an era of comic book movies, of superhero type entertainment being so prevalent, and all of these, all the CDI type productions that are out there that are involved with Marvel Comics and everybody and all the other comic sources, I guess it's not an odd thing. It shouldn't be overly questioned why a Superman would be a popular choice. And that would also make the female end of the survey that was done by DatingPositives probably predictable but curious at the same time. of 6 categories that were listed in that the respondents gave answers to concerning what kind of a female costume would attract you. Who would be the person you'd want to wind up with at the end of the party based on the costume they were wearing. Female costumes. Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, cat, nurse, sexy pizza rat. I'm not sure where to go with that exactly. And the great winner, the top winner of all, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman just blew away, literally, the rest of the competition. Who was on the bottom? Who was on the bottom? And this was with even fewer takers, as it were, than the Donald Trump on the male side. A witch. A witch. The thing that had been the most popular, I would say, as a kid for myself, type of costume. A witch, a skeleton, and presidential masks were always kind of a fun thing to have there. I don't remember that being a big thing, but I know that in recent years, Obama costumes were huge when he was in office. I remember Ronald Reagan. That was a huge type of a costume to have at parties and things of that nature. And it was thought of as fun. But a witch and Donald Trump have now shared the lower rung, according to the survey that was done by DatingPositives. 1,000 adults. And the least likely to attract attention of a person looking to be attracted to someone in costume. On the female side of costumes, a witch. On the male side, Donald Trump. Now, what does that tell you? Now, honestly, I would imagine that given the propensity to go towards show busy, what's the general categorization I'm looking for here? For more commercially popular, well-known, let's call it culturally established figures. One might imagine that a showman at heart, a game show host or a reality TV host star, and one who seems so committed to preserving that image as Donald Trump is. Someone who is so committed to being in front of a crowd and getting applause and gauging everything about himself, and frankly, gauging everything about what he's doing with and for the country on applause lines. One would think that a Donald Trump would be included in the mix in a slightly more positive way. And certainly, given the nature of what presumably is the intensified support coming from his base, as we wind down the election, pre-election process and get down to the election on November 6th. You would think that Trump, who is so dedicated everything in his life to being out there in public and being part of the culture and being a cultural icon and being the focus of everyone and everything, that would naturally translate into a Trump costume being a popular thing. But the opposite seems to be the case. As DatingPositives apparently found in a 1,000-person survey. That's I can't verify the precise scientific accuracy of it, but the person who sent me this information, I can verify that she's absolutely dependable about things like this and has given me other information like this in the past. So I'm going to go with it. And I'm going to say that what DatingPositives figured out or found out in this survey is an anecdotal statement that goes above and beyond polling about what the election results are about to be, and probably goes more to the heart of what America is thinking during this election season, then we are realizing in the polls that we're studying and the information that we're trying to use, the otherwise politically scientific information that we're using to determine where this whole thing is going on November 6th. And this is apart from abhorrence at the message and the methodology that Donald Trump is using right now. It's simply a snapshot, an anecdotal snapshot of where people's minds and souls are at, or at least people who would be going to costume parties. And that covers a pretty good age swath, I would think, where their feelings are relative to the message, the methodology, everything about a Donald Trump. Anything that would induce you to try to be like him or replicate him or present an image of him to someone else at a party where you knew you're attempting to attract somebody to you. And he is among some odd other choices, interesting choices as well, at the bottom of the heap. Now, I want to say I'm not surprised. Okay. And that would be a political statement on my part. I am, after all, doing center-left radio. Okay. But it rather reinforces and kind of validates the feelings that I think most rational Americans have been feeling in the last week or so as we wind down, as closing arguments about the closing statements are being formulated by both parties as to why you should vote Democratic or Republican.